welcome everybody here. Glad to have you here this evening. Our next order of business will be Greg will lead us in pledge to the flag. Let's stand for that, please.
I'll do it.
Oh, you'll do it?
Yeah, I'm going to do it.
All right. Whoever.
Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day, and we just thank you for bringing us all here safely. And dear God, we just thank you for the people that could come out tonight. And just be with us as we make decisions regarding our school system, and give us the wisdom to do it wisely. And just remember our military, dear God, and our country. And we just praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next will be the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes?
Everything should be correct.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Greg, second by Mr. Dawson, that the agenda be approved. All in favor of the motion, let me see your hand. Unanimous. Next on the executive session, if needed. We
do need it for personnel and litigation.
I move to go into executive session.
Motion by Dr. Dawson, second by Mr. Bishop. All in favor of the motion that we go into executive session, raise your hand. Unanimous.
Before, how we will do this is everybody is going to go. I think is Dr. Bryan in here. We're going to take about 30 minutes for executive session, and Dr. Bryan is going to take you kind of on a tour and bring you back over when we're done. And before you leave, though, before we get scattered, I would like to thank the City of Culloden, Mayor Lynn Miller, for hosting us tonight. It's been, I want to say, last January we talked about when we had some open dates that we weren't recognizing staff or students, that we would try to have some meetings out around in the county. And this was the first time since I've been superintendent that we've kind of moved the board meeting from the board office. So we're excited to be here, and we thank you for your hospitality. And it's good to be in Culloden and to see our Culloden people. So thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause for hosting us.
We recognize Dr. Bryant. Jackie Bowen's also on the city council.
Jackie, thank you so much.
And this is Miranda. She's on council in Tennessee.
Thank y'all so much for hosting us tonight.
Don't forget Margie.
Margie, well, we thank her all the time. She's always helping us. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go into executive session, and then we'll bring you back when we're done. Thank you. Phones back, so we will move on with the board meeting. If we get a request for presentation, I'll go ahead and add that, but we have to get that by Friday. And then if we get the request to address before the meeting, then we do that. So just a reminder, and then we'll move on.
Okay. We move on to approval of minutes for 2019, August the 13th and 27th.
I make a motion to approve both sets of minutes.
Motion by Mr. Gilbert. Do I get a second? Second by Mr. Pippin. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by raising your hand. Unanimous. All right. Consent item.
Just a few notes on the consent items. We have fundraiser requests from Hubbard. I think we've got 3 from Hubbard, and the rest are from married persons. And we do have one on the end of that list from Monroe County Schools. We are partnering with United Way this year with our employees. And usually when you donate to United Way, it just kind of goes to United Way. We're doing it so that we actually get the money back in Monroe County. It'll go to our Boys and Girls Club. We're going to Best Buddies at the high school, and then we're going to do Backpack Buddies as the 3 things. So our employees can make a donation to that, or we can do a monthly deduction from their check. Yes, ma'am. And so our campaign actually started yesterday, so I guess I'm asking for forgiveness of the permission right now. But it ends next month, and we'll have 1 month to raise as much as we can, and hopefully that'll go well. So if anybody's interested, you can let Jackson or I know, and but we wanted to make sure we reminded you of that. It's just, we haven't done that in a long time with United Way, but since they sponsor boys, right. Before, the money would just go to Central Georgia, and so it could go anywhere, but they let us target it back to Monroe County. I felt like it was worth our time.
That's the case, is all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan.
All right, and the field trip requests, we have, I think we have 4 on there. We've got FBLA, 2 trips, 1 to Atlanta, 1 to Athens, I think. I can't read that far. But we do have, let me get there.
Italy.
We've got chorus, middle school chorus is going to Disney World for a performance competition in March. And then we are approving this one's a big one. We did this 2 years ago, but Laura Nelson has taken a group of middle school students to Italy and Greece. And it's historical sites, and the dates will be 6/22/2020. And I think it goes through July 3rd. So it's a big trip for them, and we do that every so often. So we're excited to do that. And she's actually, just so y'all know, she puts together a nice packet, and I'll pass this around about exactly what they're to do, how it ties to the standards, and exactly where they will go on their trip. So she's worked really hard, but they need to know early so they can start raising the money, because it takes a little bit of money to get.
What's the purpose for the first 2? Ms. Ballard?
Y'all pass that around.
Just a question.
Uh-huh.
If, I know athletic contests,
That's
schedules
right.
are
Thank you.
approved, and competitions, if it's not overnight competition, does it have to get approved for field trips?
No, only thing we do is overnight.
Okay.
Right. All we do is overnights here, because if we did, it would be tons.
I know, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, there.
It would be tons. It's a good question. All right, that should be all. And we do have one House Bill 91. For those of you, just a reminder, this is for students who had finished up their credit work back when we had a Georgia high school graduation test. And at that time, you had to get all your credits and pass that test to get a diploma. And since then, the law has changed on that, and those students that did not pass the graduation test but did get their units can be awarded a diploma through House Bill 91. So we'll be approving one for Tawana Banks, who was a student in the mid-2000s at Mary Person. So those will be the consent items for approval.
Make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Pippin, do we have a second? Second by Dr. Lawson. All in favor of the motion on the consent item, raise your hand. Unanimous. Okay. Next is obtaining high student achievement and success.
All right, Ms. Elder?
Yes. I wanted to spend just a few minutes just to review our system areas of focus for this school year. So based upon the results of last school year, we set aside some targets and some action steps that our schools will focus on. And I wanted to make sure you were aware of these 4 areas again. First and foremost, we want to make sure that we are promoting student and staff safety. We are improving literacy and numeracy rates for all students. We're going to use Georgia's multi-tiered system of supports at all levels through the response to intervention and positive behavior interventions and supports. So we want to make sure that we're meeting students' needs both academically and behaviorally through Georgia's model. And then closing the achievement gap among subgroups. We want to make sure that we're working closely to make sure that we're closing those gaps among our students who are Black, our students who are white, those who are special education and those who are not special education, and those students who are economically disadvantaged and those who are not. So we work really hard in our schools to make sure all students have an equal playing field and make sure they are performing across the board at all levels, regardless of their subgroup status. So one thing to note is that we recently just held principals pre-evaluation conferences, and we actually reviewed those system areas of focus, and our principals reported on how they were going to implement those areas within their school's improvement plan. And we also cover each of these areas during our monthly
system leadership team meeting to make sure that we're on point and that we do not forget about these areas of focus, because it really drives the work that we do and the resources that we put in place across the district. We want to make sure that those are embedded within our improvement plan. And we just wanted to remind everyone of these areas. We have reviewed these before, but we wanted to make sure.
Just so you're aware, so if somebody asks what our areas of focus are as a district, you can tell them that it's pretty simple. We kind of narrowed it down.
Okay.
Any questions? All right. This information.
What, organization effective?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Personnel?
Okay, we would ask for your, we would recommend your approval of the personnel items as presented on the blue sheet that we delivered to you. So,
I'm listed on the sheet.
Motion by Dr. Dawson, second by Mr. Pippin. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by raising your hand.
thank you.
Unanimous.
Now, just realize the way the agenda goes, Chris and I are going to be pinging and ponging back and forth, so we'll
That's
work on that
okay.
for next time. So,
Financial report, Mr. Johnson.
All right.
And we'll blow it up as much as, I don't know if you can still see it, but if you'll go over those numbers with us, Chris, if you can see them, because I cannot make them out right.
Okay. If you remember last month, our beginning fund balance, I told you, was very fluid. Well, this is the number. It may change a few $1,000s here or there, but that's pretty much our beginning fund balance for the fiscal year. So it's at $3.2 million. That's what we had in the bank and LGIP at June 30th. We typically pull down about $1.2 to $1.4 million a month from LGIP to make payroll. So that just tells you that that fund balance only is going to last us 2 months. And so later in the agenda, we'll talk about getting a TAM. But the expenses are in line from where they were last year. Again, the percentages for a few of the items are over because of first of the year. There are invoices and things that have to be paid, subscriptions and software renewals that we pay a big sum at the beginning of the year. So
insurance premiums.
yeah, and insurance. That's a couple of $100,000. So those percentages will come down as the year progresses. If you scroll on down, I included there's another page there. Capital projects. That $800,000 is 2 months of SPLOST. So we're averaging well over $400,000 a month in our SPLOST revenue. If you look at the expenses, you see that big $1.5 million for capital outlay. The majority of that is for Ag Center, which I believe is done. There might be a few retainages that have been held back from contractors that we'll end up having to pay, but the bulk of that expense has been paid. So that's basically what I have for tonight. Any questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I don't know if we mentioned to you, but we had a representative from the Georgia Lottery that met with us. She had asked to come meet with all the counties and talk about what the lottery proceeds were for our county. And I never really thought about it. I knew we got money for pre-K and for Hope Scholarship, but didn't know the amounts. And so I said, when we got them, it kind of opened my eyes up. And I said, let's share that with the board members at the next meeting. So Jackson's going to share that information with you.
So our visitor was Joy Forth, who is a community relations director, and they were just traveling around meeting. So since the lottery's inception in 1994 until 2018, A total of $172 million has come back into Monroe County. And that is broken down in these ways. So $14.2 million is a retailer commission, and we asked some questions about that. Basically, a retailer who sells a ticket gets 5.5% of the cost of that ticket, plus they get 1.5% for cashing a winning ticket. And it averages about 6.2% over time. So that adds up to $14.2 million.
Back to the businesses.
That goes back to the businesses in Monroe County. The prizes paid out. Folks have won almost $118 million in winnings.
But a lot of those are dollar scratch-offs.
They are. They might be $2, $5 at a time. I did see something today about somebody had a $50,000 ticket sold in Monroe County that had been cashed. So, Hope Scholarship. So our high school students have benefited to the tune of $21.3 million. Pre-K students, 4,200 of them over the years, and that funding coming in is $17.8 million to run our pre-K program. And then the capital outlay, and that was the 2 or 3 years that the lottery bought computers and classrooms. And it only lasted 2 or 3 years. The money ended up going back to Hope and to pre-K, thank goodness. But a little over $1 million to Monroe County in lottery funds for computers. And so, again, $172 million over that period of time. We just thought it was helpful, it was interesting for y'all to hear that information. So,
Since 94, is that?
since '94 was the first year that lottery tickets were sold.
Was that through the end of 18?
Yes, yes, ma'am. So, any thoughts or questions about that?
That's a lot of money, isn't it? I didn't realize it was that much.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Johnson, back up.
All right.
Our tax anticipation notices, and if you'll explain what that is again, and then we'll, for our audience.
Like I said, our payroll is about $2.5 million to $3 million a month. When you add in the salaries, benefits, all that. And you saw our fund balance. Well, it only lasted us 2 months. So now, basically for our payroll at the end of this month, we don't have the cash. So what I did was send out requests to local banks, requesting a bid on a tax anticipation note. It is something that was set up in the Georgia legislature years ago to allow boards to borrow money in anticipation of their tax money coming in later. So basically, we're going to borrow a little bit of money, or a lot of money.
I think you say a little bit, what?
Well, out of a $44 million budget, that's really only about 10%. So it's not a huge amount. I mean, it is a lot of money. But these are the bids that have come in. We only got 2 back. State Bank, which is now Cadence, basically said, we appreciate the opportunity, but we are not going to submit a bid. So they replied to us. BB&T, it actually bounced back to me, the email I sent. Through a friend of mine, I found out they've had some turnover in that department, and so it probably didn't get to the people it needed to in time. So the only 2 banks that...
What is Planter and Citizens?
They're out of Culloden, I think.
For who?
Their office is located on Lee Street, across from the courthouse.
I just didn't know the name of it.
They used to work at first.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I knew you were doing something, I didn't know the name of the bank.
Right.
This goes on Leamington.
Yeah.
So we had 2 bids come back, Persons and United. Persons came in with 3.25% interest rate, and 0.5% was a fee, basically like an origination fee. Then you look at United, it's 2.09% interest and no fee. When I sent the request, I made sure that we could repay this loan at any time with no penalty. And that's all in the bid documents. So basically, we recommend that the board approve going with United Bank to borrow $4.5 million to be paid back by at least December 31st of 2019.
Motion by Dr. Dawes, you motion for?
It doesn't matter what it is.
Second by Dr. Dawes. All in favor?
Well, just a point of discussion that might be helpful. So, United Bank had the bid last year at 1.985, so we're up about 1/10 of a point with the economy, and that is a very good rate. What we will do is get in touch with the folks that do our bond work, which is Tread Siphon out of Gainesville, Georgia. He will do the paperwork, we'll get it and close that note. We'll take the money into our local government investment pool, so we are allowed to earn interest on the money we hold, and then we draw it down as needed. It's very liquid, so we'll only draw down what we need when we need it. And then at the point that tax revenue comes in, and all the tax digest has been submitted to Atlanta, so hopefully bills will come out soon. And as soon as we start receiving that tax money, that will slow down the amount we have to pull down, and once we build up enough, we will pay the loan off. So we've typically paid off by mid-December in the last few years, so we don't go all the way to the end of the month. But I just wanted to give you that information so you would know. So what the interest we pay is offset by the interest we earn at the investment pool.
Last year, when we borrowed the $3.5 million, the interest we earned on that money at LGIP was within $1,000 of the interest we had to pay on the loan. So it was really a wash. And we're hoping the same thing will happen this year.
Almost a wash.
I mean, $1,000 or so.
Typically, if you borrow money, they'll do it over whatever you got. I mean, that's pretty good.
That's good.
I need to go talk to United Bank.
Yeah. Y'all know anybody that works at United Bank?
After listening to all that good information, are you ready to vote for United Bank? All in favor of that motion, raise your hand.
One abstain.
You one abstain, okay?
Thank you.
You got a deal.
Mr. Hedge, you can apply for a TRAN, that is a tax refund anticipation.
There you go. All right. Is that just a cheap money too?
Possibly.
All right, the next thing up under SO2 is proposed waste agreement with county, and we've kind of been back and forth with, just to let you know, we sat down Friday with Mr. Hedges, Mr. Daniel, myself, and Mr. Vaughn, and kind of worked through, I told y'all before, I didn't bring you anything, we didn't bring any concrete numbers, because we wanted to make sure the numbers matched the contract, and we have that now. We have a good understanding of what the charges are, what they're for. And so I'm gonna let Jackson go through those, and we've got a recommendation to make, and we'll get to that in just a second. So I'm gonna let him present what we
Okay.
have.
So we, as he said, we had a meeting, we went through how the amount of money that is in this agreement has been calculated. Basically, what we're doing is covering equipment cost, personnel cost in terms of the driver and the supervision, and the tipping fee at the landfill. You know, one reason that this feels like a pretty hefty amount is because we have been paying nothing. Okay, we have not paid any tipping fees or any for this service, and so, you know, we certainly understand the need to cover those costs. Those costs to us have been justified. If we did some informal investigation, and we could go to a private company and have them haul our trash, then they would come back to us with the tipping fees they had to pay at the landfill.
Yeah, tipping fees.
So you're gonna pay a
around
tipping fee
15,
no matter what.
No matter what. And so really it's the hauling from there. And so the amount you see minus that is your hauling.
Explain what the tipping fee is.
Tipping fee is a tonnage amount at the Monroe County landfill. So X number of dollars for every ton. I won't say right now it's around 30, but it is going up soon. The $30 is locked in this agreement. So this is an intergovernmental agreement. have Monroe County pull our dumpsters, our compactors that we own at every school on a regular basis, drive to the landfill, dump the trash, pay, they will record the tipping fee for their records. Basically, what we're gonna do is pay 1/12 of this amount
We're gonna
every
get a
month.
monthly, the original contract, the second contract
Right.
had it was a yearly invoice, and we didn't want to do that, we wanted it monthly, so we changed that. So it would be a monthly billing.
And this is capped at the dollar amounts that we're gonna talk about in a minute, so if there had to be, for some reason, an additional pull every 2 months, we're not going to get charged extra tipping fees or costs. These are capped at this amount. So the fees that are in the agreement, $23,700 for the current year, and then a 3% increase in 2021, so that would take it to $24,400, and then $25,100 in 21-22. I'm giving a lot of 20 numbers here, but it's a 3-year intergovernmental agreement that Monroe County will help us handle and dispose of our waste over 3 years, starting July 1 of this year. So this will retro back to July 1 of 19. Any questions? Okay.
What's the county owe us?
Waste is a problem, and I'll give you just a very short history of how we got in the compactor business. The city of Forsyth used to pick up the top dumpsters, the top load dumpsters, and we had them located at every building, and they came every day and picked those up. They got out of that business, and they actually offered us the truck and said, you can haul your own trash. We did some investigating and found out that was probably not the best move to make. And so the county was doing the recycling centers, and they were buying the compactors, and we actually worked with them, and that's how we bought our compactors. We have added on over the years, and I think this is a much better solution.
Yeah, we're talking about that, just the minus the tipping, that's all we're talking about, so it's just the hauling fee.
Correct.
Above 15, so I mean, it's in, and I've checked around, and it's within reason.
Yes.
It's very much within reason, because no matter who picks it up, they're gonna have to take it to the landfill. They're not gonna take it somewhere else,
And the county has provided this at no charge at all for a number of years. So.
That's true.
Move to accept the proposal.
Second.
We need a motion to get the agreement.
Move to accept the proposal.
Motion by Mr. Head, second by Dr. Dawson, that we accept the agreement. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by raising your hand. You're now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being patient with that.
Okay.
All right, the next item that I sent out, gave a little bit of heads up. We moved our calendar up. Typically, we do our calendar options maybe later in the fall, and last time we did a 2-year. But on our yearly calendar, we put that in September, we would go ahead and get the options out and try to get some feedback so that we can maybe make a recommendation back to the board by November, no later than December, to go ahead and adopt the following year's calendar so people can make plans. I've had people ask me, and I feel like we need to do that and go in and plan it. I do feel like with some uncertainty with our where we're heading economically, I'm just a little afraid to do 2, so I'd rather us do a year and then do another year later so that we wouldn't get ahead of ourselves.
I agree.
Because you just never know. We felt pretty good, but I don't know with the election coming up and everything, how that might affect stuff. So I feel like a 1 year might be the best to do. So I sent some information out to you guys, and I've got a hard copy. And really tonight, I would love for us to be able to send 2 or 3 out basically to our stakeholders. And when I say stakeholders, I'm talking about students, parents, community members, and staff to kind of get the feedback about what they feel about it. Now, I did take the liberty because sometimes, you know, when I develop these, I try to develop a wide range of things for you to see. And I did send it out to the principals because I didn't want to put something out for feedback that just will not work. You know, like, it has to work for the school, and if there was some adverse effect of that, I had them to give me feedback, and I basically sent it to y'all. So the feedback that I got from the administration, and I sent it to all the principals and all the directors, because I knew they would each have some idea if there was a problem with the calendar. So we got pretty much the okay that A, B, and C was doable. We could do A, B, and C for whatever reason. D was the one that was from Bibb County, and I don't know if y'all had a chance to look at it, but it just has some random days in there that just kind of, I couldn't figure it out.
Nope.
I didn't particularly like it. And nobody voted for that one, except one, because that person had somebody that was a relative that worked in Bibb County, I think. And then the last one we didn't. The last one, just so you know, I wanted to try to do something that was later. Y'all keep telling, you know how, if Nolan's not here, so I'm gonna speak on his behalf. He said, let's get closer to Labor Day. But the only problem we have now is because we are on a semester schedule really at both middle and high. And this used to be the case, but you have to understand when we were on a block schedule, we actually test our kids middle ways. So they all take 4 courses, they take a test, then they take 4 more courses, and they take a test at the end for 8 total classes. Before we had 7 classes that went all year long. So it really didn't matter when we took a break, really. Now it does make a difference, so I have to try to keep that so that they have around 90 days in each semester. I know this is a lot, but we have to think about it a lot. And what happens in E, even when I whittled down the days as much as I could, and I felt like we could get away with, it runs us over into January. You see where January ends the end of the semester. So we come back from Christmas break, we'll have to spend about 2 weeks. Now, you know, and I don't think the middle and high school, you know, could we do it? Yes, but it wasn't optimal for the teachers or the kids because they'd have to come back and then review again and then take a milestone assessment. So that was the reason why nobody chose that one. So I mean, I didn't want to put something out that people got feedback on that wouldn't work for the children.
I like draft C.
A and B?
C.
You want C?
C.
I mean, I'm good either way.
See, she ain't going to school in July. She ain't.
Well, you can keep her out.
Well, she will. She will stay out the whole week because we are not going to school in July. No, it's
Yeah,
not sending
I like
the
A
child
and
to
B,
school
and
in
we
July.
did the C because y'all had asked me about the fall.
It's just
Yeah,
too hot on that
I think we need a
bus.
whole week in October and a whole week in November.
Okay.
I think we might need an asterisk or something.
About the fall break?
If the football
Well,
game.
let's remember to put that, because I'll find out. We do the reclassification, and I'm sure it's gonna be later, other than earlier, about us knowing about that.
Here, the October fall break, people like to go see the league. No.
They don't need the whole week to do it.
But they
Yeah.
got a 4-day weekend.
We do a 4-day on the other calendar. So,
On the A, they got a 4-day.
so am I hearing a A, B, and a C, or A and B?
Who wants a fall break, a week-long fall
Well,
break?
adjust A to start.
Now, this is just going out. Just
Yeah, just to get, then we'll come back with a recommendation based on the information we got.
I say A, B, put A, B, and C out to a.
Yeah.
I felt that.
C.
No,
Y'all just gonna see that. I'm not sending my child to school
Wait,
in
not
July.
for me.
It's just a work
We need to hear what everybody has to say.
Vote for A and B. But now, I think a
No,
lot,
my child
most of
knows
the,
about
most of the
pass out
people,
off that bus and y'all want to move it up to
most of the
July.
people that we looked at administratively actually like A to this, so,
I like
just so you know.
Except for starting the fall.
All right, so we're gonna put A, B, and C out. There's no need to vote. We'll put it out, and then we'll come back, probably, we'll give it a month, and then we'll come back probably in November, hopefully with a recommendation that we can go ahead and get that posted in December so families can make plans for next year. Is that good? Everybody good?
Sounds good.
All right. Enrollment. Dr. Mercer, if you'll kind of, you may have to read it out, but
Yeah, I think
I'm
I'll
probably
have
the
to
worst
read it out
side
for
back
you.
here, so I know I can't see it, so.
I'm sorry.
You may not be able to see it. The important number is 4,157, which is an
Ooh,
uptick,
we did 3 more.
Yeah, that's 3 up of what you told us the other day.
which is an uptick from your last numbers. But it also, I gave you a chart that I could forward to you, so you can send it to you in your email. But 4,053, and what I do is I take the first Tuesday in October, because that's what the state does. And so those are our total population. For instance, you might see an uptick as well, for instance, at pre-K. It's because we've had a number of students who we may serve just for speech, or we've served them in special needs pre-K. And so those numbers are included as well. But we're pretty stable. You'll also see that we have some grade levels who are very small and others who are large. For instance,
What's kindergarten?
Kindergarten, hang on, I can talk from over here probably better.
Pretty good since we've added 2 teachers.
Kindergarten is at 319, and last year it was at 289. The previous year before that it was 280, and then it was 245. In 2016 it was 305. And then
So that's the highest number we've had in quite.
That is a high number we've had in quite some time. You'll see, for instance, we have a small group at 7th grade. They are 287. They are bookcased by a 6th grade that's got 317 in it, and an 8th grade that's got 337.
Ooh, that may be the most of any of them, isn't it? 337?
Well, what's
So-
coming, fourth grade?
That's a high
And
number.
then the 4th grade that we have is very high. It has 341 students. So we do have cohorts that seem to rise and ebb and fall. So, but overall, if we look back as far as the year 2014, our number was at 4,025 in the first Tuesday, October of 2014. So thinking about September of 2019, 4,157 is still in the same family. Still
We're
in,
creeping though.
We are creeping.
And because of the size of our system, you know, like 60 or 70 makes a huge difference to us, because, I mean, we're gonna have to hire people to those numbers. So we just have to pay attention to it. And it makes a lot of difference for resource adoption with Ms. Elder, because we don't really project, we just use the numbers we have. So if we've got 285 kids, we're not gonna order 330 books, okay? So we're gonna order that number, but if that next one's coming up has 320, then we have to go back and fill those books in. So it's just a constant trying to refurbish our instructional materials to make up for the differing amounts of children. So that's a good problem, but it's something we have to pay attention to all the time.
Does anybody know what our Monroe County's population increase was from last year?
From last year, I can't give you that, but I can give you what we use is census numbers, so I could go get you the census estimates.
They do have last year's number, they have an 18 number?
They do an estimate number based
All the numbers
on,
I've seen's been 17.
yeah, so I'll have to see if there's an 18 that's available, but.
I'd just be curious.
What was around like 28,000, I mean, give or
I
take.
want to see it went up, what did it go up, like 600?
I don't know, I mean, that was
That's what I saw.
about 28,000, I believe. Don't. Just remember reading through something. All right, any questions about enrollment? We just want to keep this number in front of you and kind of, we'll pay attention. So as these numbers trickle up or trickle back, it makes a difference as we get ready in the spring to hire staff for next year. So that's kind of how we do that process. All right, thank you, Dr. Mercer. SO4, our tentative training schedule. Ms. Elder's going to share that with you, and I think she's got some, next month we have to turn into the State Department, our training plan from last year. So she's going to go over that as well.
Right, so as you know, as every staff member, they have to have a professional learning plan. We also have to have one for our Board of Education. So basically the plan is in front of you. You've also received a copy of this plan, and I've been updating it along the way. Basically our plan will help support our board receiving exemplary board distinction in the summer whenever we attend the summer conference for GSBA. So the criteria, they're listed on the left-hand side, and we are on track for meeting that same level of distinction again for this year. You'll see in the middle, you'll see the action steps that we will put in place throughout the year so that we can meet those criteria. And then the dates are on the right whenever we do meet those. So I'm constantly going back and making sure that we're on track to meet that level of distinction. If you'll scroll to I think it's the last page. Okay. So within our plan, I wanted to include our training dates for this year. So our first training date, which will be 7 hours, will be on November the 12th. And that's the day that we will actually visit schools and visit some classrooms on that day. We're not sure exactly what we're going to do as far as a learning topic from 2 until 5. We've asked for some input from you. We've received, I think, one thing from Ms. Pettigrew. But right now, we just need, if you have any suggestions, please let us know. If not, we're going to fill it in.
Yeah, we need to secure people.
That's November what?
12th.
And starts at 10 in the morning, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And then on January the 25th, that will be our day-long planning day, from 8:30 until 3:30.
Saturday.
It's on a Saturday, and that day will be when we do our code of ethics, conflict of interest, and nepotism policy reviews. We'll also do our self-assessment for GSBA and determine action steps that we will begin in January through the following January. And again, we have some open slots for some topics of interest that you would like for us to cover. And then on April the 14th, we will have 3 hours of in-service that day. We will cover resource adoption. We'll look at personnel, processes, budget, and that's our Teacher of the Year evening too. Okay? So we are on track to meet those required hours for exemplary board once we fulfill those. And of course, some of you who will be attending some events during winter GSBA and summer GSBA, those hours will count also towards the
Pre-conference
training.
do, regular do.
That's right, the pre-conference, exactly right. So with all that being said, by October 15th,
Yeah, we have to get that.
we have to submit our hours from last year. So basically, we have to report the hours that we submitted on our for GSBA. And I have that submission sheet here. It also says that you maintain the code of ethics training and the conflict of interest training, and it lists the credit hours that each of you have earned. I have a copy of your hours on a separate document so you can keep it for your records when they've been compiled throughout the year. If you will please sign your name next to your the hours that you've received, verify your address to make sure I have it correct, and we will be ready to submit this. And I will give you your hours.
Thank y'all for going above and beyond too. That's a lot of hours we have.
Did we go there?
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Nolan led the way this time because he had one extra.
29.
He went with the board chair training, I think,
We're close.
down in Macon maybe. Another one of the two.
Didn't we go down? We went down.
We went to safety down at Perry.
Down at Perry, okay.
Rode in the little van.
What are we saying?
She's coming around. She's coming.
He's got to do it first,
Oh,
and he's got to pass it
Yeah,
out.
another sheet to sign. That's the one she'll
oh.
scan and send up to them.
So at the top of your page, it will say the total number of hours that you've earned. Just make sure I transpose those numbers correctly.
I don't have 8, I was in like 10 hours. And then
What?
board members with 8 hours.
On that sheet they gave you, that the pink sheet that you submitted, that's how many you earned.
I should have cut out there early. It's only 6 hours.
And remember, just to go up and above and beyond, remember, just for regular board members, without doing anything special, I think it's 9 hours. And then for new, it's 15, so you can see how much above that you did, so I appreciate that. I think the community appreciates that.
So we didn't have to have it 9 hours?
To be exemplary. You have to have 12 to be exemplary
Yeah.
for.
12.
To be
Yeah.
exemplary.
We don't want to lower that bar, because once you lower the bar, it's hard to get the bar back up. But I feel like
How many you got?
Judy, I look at it like this, our kids go above and beyond, so we'll go above and beyond with them.
It's easy.
It is.
We'll make sure you get it.
Start of the school year,
Yeah, this year, it's already started.
like now,
So from now to the next.
June through June 30, July 1 through June 30.
July 1.
Yeah, that confused me the first time I had to figure it out. When was I figuring it out from? When was I doing it for January 1? This is kind of basically our budget. Anytime you're dealing with DOE, they're asking for July 1. All right. Any questions about our plan for the year in professional learning? All right. Jackson, will you kind of go over our reminders real quick? That's the last thing we've got for you.
All right, coming up a week from Thursday, we'll host our first sold-out event at the Fine Arts Center, John Christ. There is not a ticket available, and I've got a list of folks looking for them, so that's a big event. On the 28th, which is a Saturday at 7:30, we'll host the Gatlin Brothers, and Patrick told me that he had a conversation with Larry, Rudy, and I can't remember the third one's name, but he actually talked with them on the phone the other day about setup. On the 30th, Mary Persons will hold their first concert of the year, the Fall Chorus Concert. That will be at 7 o'clock. On the morning of October 1st, the ribbon cutting at the Agri Center, and I think there's something at your spot, so we will certainly like to see you there. Later that night, Monroe County Middle School will hold their fall concert. That'll be at 6:30, and then our next board meeting is October the 8th.
Any other items?
Ready for that motion?
I would like to say that, this chair works a lot better than the other.
It doesn't wiggle and wobble, does it?
It's a nice chair. I like this chair. Thank you, Culloden.
Thank you, Culloden, for the nice chairs.
Okay, motion by, we adjourn. Do you have a second? Don't have no second, I can't second.
You can right here.
Who seconded the motion? Mr. Pittman. All in favor of the motion? Let's get up and go. All right. You know.
Thank y'all again for coming. Thank you, Culloden, for hosting us tonight. And we look forward to seeing y'all in the future. I'm gonna win, but it might be a while.